Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I am your host, Lake, and I am once again joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
Great. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. Excited to talk about this episode because there is a certain ship that I feel like we have been neglecting, not because we wanted to, but because it's kind of sailing out of some weird places right now.
Yeah, you have been itching for this episode. I'm excited that we have it for you.
Yes. So we are going to be talking about the Magic today, and probably the Magic's most coveted cruise since it no longer does Europe, I would say.
Yeah, you might be right. Oh, well, we'll talk about it because the embarkation port is a little bit tricky, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say this does get you some different Caribbean ports that people, especially Disney cruise liners, are really itching to get to.
Well, that's accurate.
Why don't we go ahead and bring our guest on? This week, we'd like to welcome Liz to the show. Liz, how are you today?
Good. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We are happy to have you on the show. Excited to talk about this sailing. Why don't you start by giving us a little bit of your Disney Cruise Line background?
Yeah, it'll be a short conversation because I have basically no background. I went to Disney once when I was like 5. I don't remember it and have not gone back since, except for I actually went with like a company trip to Anaheim and did like just an all adult nighttime visit. And that was sort of my first experience back at Disney. Since then, I was kind of overwhelmed. There was a lot of crowds and lines and things that I didn't know much about. But I do have 2 little girls who are obsessed with Disney and Disney princesses, and they love the princess dress up and they love all the movies, and I love seeing how much they love it. So I knew I wanted to give them a Disney experience, but they are 4. I started researching what I could do for them, and the Disney cruise seems just like a perfect option for them to get that experience.
So then you picked like sort of a pinnacle cruise of a 7-night Southern Caribbean cruise on the Disney Magic out of San Juan. And so there's a bit to unpack there. But so let's start. How did you like pick one of the more difficult cruises to take with your 4-year-old twin girls?
So this all started because I thought Alaska would be the perfect option. And so I started a while back looking at the Alaska cruise and realized shortly after I got into it that it maybe wasn't a good mix to try to get my Disney experience and my Alaska experience at the same time, because I wanted to be on the boat a lot for the Disney stuff, but for Alaska, I wanted to be off the boat a lot to do Alaska stuff. So I thought we should pivot and find a different, itinerary. And so I basically searched, I knew I wanted to do 7 nights. I started listening to y'all's podcast actually. And so I had sort of learned a little bit about the ships and the options. And so I knew I wanted to do 7 nights because I felt like that would be enough to do everything and see everything. So I just searched for the cheapest concierge itinerary out there because I had heard one of the things I was worried about is since I was a first time cruiser, I wouldn't be able to book everything I wanted to book. And I wanted to make sure we could. So I knew concierge was a way to sort of cut the line. So I just searched for the cheapest option and this was it. And it ended up being an awesome itinerary. So I was excited for that as well.
I love it. And spoiler, you were in concierge.
Yes.
So which cabin did you pick for your family?
It was the family veranda. My parents also came and they were a little bit of not last minute in the sense that we booked this over a year ago, but this cruise did end up selling out and they booked about a couple months after us. And so they wanted to join and it was sold out, I guess, in concierge, but we were able to continue to call and they eventually got 1 room left in concierge, which was a 1-bedroom. So they booking that. Yeah, exciting.
And just a tip for people, Disney will keep a concierge waitlist. So you can actually add yourself now to a wait list if you need a cabin and concierge. And what they do now is they email out everybody on that list, whoever might be on there. And it's sort of like whoever calls to put their deposit down first is the one that gets it.
Yeah, we just had to keep calling and refreshing. The wait list sounds easier, but they got a really unique room. It was actually on the back of the ship. So it's that cabin that has like the big deck right under Cabana. So it's kind of an interesting setup for them.
Nice. The girls must have loved that back there.
Yes. And they did enjoy, because if you get like, if me and my husband would go to the top, we could like wave down at them while they were down there. So that was kind of a fun element for them.
You talked about wanting to book concierge because you wanted to be able to book the things that you wanted to do. What all did you have booked before the cruise?
So it's funny because after, I said that, I didn't change my mind 100 times about what we actually wanted to do. But we ultimately ended up booking is we booked the Princess Gathering, which I know it's, I guess, supposed to open up 30 days beforehand, but in concierge, they did let me book it at 130 days out. And then the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique and the Royal Court Tea. And then we booked a couple of adult beverage tastings and Palo brunch on the sea day, and then all of our excursions. And then I did end up canceling both adult beverage tastings, one of them in the middle of doing it because the boat was moving so much that I was like, I cannot keep drinking tequila. I was like, I need to leave. And then just decided that I would not risk it with the next one. A couple of the excursions I canceled as I got more realistic about my 4-year-old's ability to do things.
Well, first cruise and quite a doozy as well. I'm sure there was quite a bit of learning experiences. So to get on the sailing, we have to go to a whole other island, a whole other territory, San Juan, Puerto Rico. What was our plan for getting down to San Juan and getting aboard the ship?
Yeah, so to me, that actually seems like a benefit. Puerto Rico, we've been a couple of times. There's direct flights from DC where I live. Pretty easy, like 3.5-hour flight. So not much longer than going to Miami or wherever else in Florida. And you could do international travel. And before my kids had passports, Puerto Rico was kind of our go-to place if we wanted to go out of the country without going out of the country. So we had been a couple times. So I knew the area pretty well. And we actually had done what we call our test cruise out of Miami about 2 years ago, where we wanted to make sure we didn't get seasick before we committed to 7 days. So we just did like a weekend cruise. And Miami is a crazy port. It's a lot of people. It is a big airport. It is hard to get. It's expensive to get an Uber and it's far away. And Puerto Rico is so, and the other thing I'll say about Puerto Rico is the entire place knew this cruise ship was coming to town and they were ready. Our whole hotel was, I think, getting on this cruise ship, and the cabs were lined up that morning ready to take us. They had all the big cabs and they just had it going like clockwork, getting all the people to the port. And same when we got off, they knew we were coming and they were all there waiting. So that was kind of a nice element. Whereas in Miami, they have 1,000 cruise ships all the time. So.
What hotel did you stay at before your cruise?
So it was called the Sheraton Old San Juan. When I booked it, it's now rebranded as a Hotel Rumbia, but it's a Marriott property. I'm a big Marriott Rewards fan. Yeah, so it's next to a port, which I think is the port that they sometimes stop in, but there's 2 ports, and it's called like the Pan America port, but it was only like 5 or 6 minutes away. But I mean, with the amount of luggage we brought, there was we were walking either way, so it was kind of nice. We had an excuse that we had to get into a cab.
Perfect.
Did you just come in the night before then?
Yep. We came in, the morning before. I think it was like an 8 a.m. flight the morning before. And I was in like a group chat that I joined for the cruise of WhatsApp. And so a lot of people were like having trouble. I guess there was some bad weather. And so I was relieved we got in. There were people who were cutting it quite close with delayed and canceled flights.
Did you do anything during that day in San Juan?
I mean, not really. Like I said, we've been a couple times. It was so hot. It was incredibly hot that day. And my kids were very tired. And so we kind of just focused on like letting them rest. We went out to dinner, walked around. My parents got in later that day to just sort of hanging out. And we went to Walgreens like 7 times as we forgot everything and would remember we needed this and this and this, but mainly just hung out.
All right. Well, why don't we turn to getting on the Magic? You already mentioned there was plenty of cabs lined up to get you to the port. What was the embarkation process like for you guys?
It was super easy. I think the one, I don't know, it's like mistake we made. Like I said, we had a lot of luggage between my family and my parents. And when the cab dropped us off, we just kind of got out, right? What looked like the beginning of the line, which it was. But what we didn't realize is the luggage drop off was quite a bit down the road. So after getting dropped off, it then was like quite the project to ferry all the luggage down to where it needed to be and then get back with 2 4-year-olds. But once we did that, the concierge thing was super nice. Obviously, you just walked to the front of the line. There were people telling you where to go. And we walked, literally right onto the ship from once we started. So it was great. And right to the concierge lunch. thing.
And what were your thoughts on boarding the Magic?
It was exciting. I mean, I had listened to a lot of podcasts and watched a lot of YouTube videos. So I was, excited for the moment when they would say like, yeah, I was excited for them to announce our family's last name and welcome to the Magic. And Pluto was right there to dance and welcome us in, which the girls were really excited about. We had been telling them we're going on the Mickey boat for a while, but I don't think they kind of got what that meant. My daughter on the way in asked if she could sit next to me on the boat. And I was like, yes, but it's a very different experience than what you're expecting.
What was their reaction then, kind of approaching the ship then, and probably figuring out that this is not a little boat by any means?
Yeah, I mean, they were really excited. I think they were they were really excited that their grandma and grandpa were there and that we were all doing this exciting thing. And I think they were just interested to see what was going to happen. They had, their Mickey ears on and I had Mickey ears on. And so I think they were starting to get the idea that this was going to be fun.
And then just a question as we move forward here. We already talked about how you booked concierge so you would be able to book the things you wanted. Would you consider you and your family like a big day-by-day planner? Did you have like an itinerary of the things you needed to do on embarkation day, or were you a little more go with the flow?
I'm a big planner in the sense that you heard I listened to a lot of podcasts, did a lot of research. I had like a Google Doc with everything. But I know that with my kids, it needs to be a little more go with the flow and relax. I knew we had to go to the kids club and get them registered. I knew we wanted to do the concierge lunch. I knew I wanted to see the lounge. I wanted to unpack. So go to the sail away party. Kind of by the time we did all that, it was time for dinner. So the day went really fast.
What did we think of the sail away party?
I thought it was really fun. And so our sailing only had 600 kids on it, apparently, I found out, which I think is pretty low. And especially when you consider those kids are probably spread out from babies to like 18 years old. The number of kids who were really into it was a small number of kids, and they had an area sectioned off for that. That was great. They were able to get front and center and watch the whole thing. And of course, that moment when they say, you're on vacation now and play the horn was pretty exciting.
I just think it's so funny, the difference between Lake and I, because he heard all the things that she had going on the first day before dinner and was like, what was the sailaway party like? And then I heard the whole thing that she had. And I want to know, what was the concierge lounge on the Magic like?
The concierge lounge was great. I mean, I understand they just redid it in dry dock. It was busy the first day. And I guess, which I didn't know until I got on, they do serve beer, wine, and champagne all day in the concierge lounge on the first day. So, okay, yeah. So it was quite bumping on the first day. But it was really nice. They have a big fridge with all the drinks that you could want, like the Diet Cokes or waters or whatever you could want. And a lot of seating, like an area for the kids to watch cartoons. It's overlooking the adult pool. So we actually spent way more time in there than I thought we would. It was just like a nice meeting place to say, okay, we'll all meet here before dinner, or we'll all meet here after the excursion. And the people working in there were so nice. They were like really sweet to my kids and always, hi, how are you, princesses? All of that. So I really enjoyed that space. And it wasn't as like for the rest of the time I went in there, unless it was happy hour, it was only like a couple of people at any given time.
Nice. I can't wait to see it.
So I think we're missing one more big part of your embarkation experience. What was your room like?
Yeah, it was nice. It was a lot more, not bigger in the sense of like, but there was a lot of storage space. Like, I think I mentioned like 8 times how much luggage we brought. And so I started to kind of panic the night before, like, where am I going to put all of this? My family embarrassingly had 8 bags, but we fit it all in there, like easily, like all the bags fit under the bed. And there was tons of storage room for hanging and drawers and everything. So I was really, really happy with it. And the bed was super comfortable. It was a nice surprise, like really comfortable.
You're very comfortable. How did it work with 2 4-year-old twin girls with the beds? So because there's a bunk bed, and then do they both want the bunk bed? And did you want any child to be on the bunk bed?
No. And so I think that was one of the things I liked about this room and Disney was, I guess, because they could sleep 5, we just didn't have to use the bunk bed. So there were 2 like lower, there was like the pull out bed, and then there was like the couch bed. So they slept one on the other because I was afraid to risk the bunk.
Yeah.
And the other thing I really like, which I was worried about and I hadn't heard someone mention, is on the Disney cruises, which wasn't on the Norwegian cruise we went on, they have like a child safety lock on the balcony, which is just really nice because I was worried that we were sleeping furthest away from the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
They were closest to the balcony. And I was like, what if in the middle of the night they, for some reason, decide to go, but they couldn't because of the child safety lock. So that was awesome.
The Norwegian ship didn't have a child safety lock?
No, but I mean, they still have a lot. It's just not that high up child safety one that the kids can't reach.
All right. Well, did we get up to anything else before we turn towards your first rotational dining?
No, I think the only thing that was kind of interesting was like being in this group chat. I kind of had this like, I had not been on a cruise before, but this constant back and forth with everyone else on it, talking about how like different this cruise was. And I don't know if that was because we were out of San Juan, but I guess the muster ran really long and the sail away party started late. Things that like I didn't notice and didn't bother me, but it was interesting to sort of hear, those differences.
Interesting. Well, as we turn towards dining, we've got Lumiere's Animator's Palette and Rapunzel's Royal Table on the Magic. Where was our first dining menu?
It was at Animator's Palette, which was, I think, a good place to start. And I thought the food was great. And it's a really nice like vibe in there. They do a really nice job of like bringing the magic and feeling like the magic, but feeling really, I'm on a Disney ship now. So that was cool. And I don't think my parents had done basically any research. So they had no idea what to expect, which was so kind of cool to see their reactions as well. Was
this the welcome aboard menu? And did they do any of the show aspects with that then?
I don't know if it was a special menu. It was, I think the classic like goes from black and white to color. And then, Merlin, Mickey danced around and came by.
After dinner, did we get up to anything else before we headed to bed for the evening?
No, not that night. As you can imagine, the kids were wiped. So I think actually, that was the night that they went and stayed in my parents' room so we could go do the tequila tasting. But we hit pretty rough waters coming out of San Juan. I mean, I'm probably being dramatic. I haven't been on a lot of cruises before, but it was a little bit unnerving for me. And so I was having a hard time drinking straight tequila. So we got about halfway through and I was like, I really just have to call this one. So I felt bad, but the lady said, she's like, oh, obviously I understand. And we just sort of called it a night and went to bed. So probably bit off a little more than we could chew on the first night out, but it was a good first day overall.
So then your first port of call, the very next day in this port intense itinerary is St. Kitts. What did you guys have planned for St. Kitts?
I did have a little bit of a hard time finding excursions we were interested in for my kids because most of them have a minimum age of 5. And the one thing I would tell Disney is it'd be great to be able to sort the excursions by the age requirement.
Right.
I don't think they have something. So it was kind of like having to scan each one and figure it out. But so for this one, we just decided we did a resort pass at the Park Hyatt in St. Kitts. Really nice. We got the resort pass was like a cabana that you got. And since there was,
Did you do that resort pass privately or did you book it through Disney?
No, I did it through resortpass.com.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. And so we just grabbed a cab and took it out there. And the cost, because it was for adults and I was splitting with my parents of getting this cabana, was actually like a lot more affordable than doing an excursion. And it was really beautiful and quiet and great pool, great beach. So we spent a couple hours there and then cabbed back to the cruise ship. So it was awesome.
Sounds like a great way to spend that day.
Yeah.
Smart.
About what time did you get back to the ship then?
I think around 3. We were, didn't want to take any chances of being left. But again, every port we went to, we were the only cruise ship there and everybody knew the cruise ship was in town. So it was like you got off, every cab probably on the island was there and they all knew the program. So yeah, we got back and it was really nice to be able to, the girls went straight to the kids club actually. And so it was really nice to just be able to, I thought it'd be like a lot more relaxing while they were at the kids club, but it was more like going back to regroup for the next activity, like getting their outfits, making sure we were signed up for the character meets and greets, planning like all the things they would need to be ready for tomorrow. But they would go for about an hour at a time and then we'd go get them ready for dinner.
And where was our second dinner at?
Rapunzel's Royal Table.
And what did we think of that meal?
I thought the food was good. I mean, every meal I thought the food was really good and we never had the same menu twice, which I had been under the impression that the menus would repeat, but they don't. So that was awesome. And I loved that you could just order whatever you wanted, especially for my kids. It was an opportunity for them to try some new things that I would not want to risk ordering and them not eating. But, my one daughter had salmon and they had steak and all sorts of things that you don't normally order a 4-year-old, but they loved it. we didn't have like the best seat at Rapunzel's royal table, but I think it was really enjoyable, and Rapunzel comes around and meets the kids, which of course they love. So yeah, and the lanterns are really cool. Like the whole theming is really nice in that restaurant.
Yeah, it's beautiful in there.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite restaurant, theming wise at least, on the fleet.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then after dinner, did you go to the show or did you?
I think so. I'm losing track of what night the shows are, but we went to all 3 of the Broadway style shows. We sort of had decided as a family, like, even though it's a little bit late, because I think they start at 8:30, which is like way past my kid's bedtime, especially on a day with no nap. But we committed we were going to go to them, so we did. And we really liked them, and they held my kids' attention really well, which I was totally surprised by. I thought they would be bored and antsy, but they really liked them. And I enjoyed all of them. I think the first one we went to was the Cinderella one, which I thought was really cool and well done. And we had some kind of a guest Broadway performer who played the wicked stepmom, and she was amazing. It was really cool to see her perform.
Going a little off topic, did she also do a like cabaret show?
Well, she was supposed to, and they announced it, and we were really excited about it, but it must have gotten canceled because the day we went to go to it and it wasn't there. We went to guest services and they said they didn't know what happened to it. So I guess on our sailing, it didn't work out. But she was in 2 of the shows and she did a great job at both of them.
Was she Mother Gothel in Tangled?
Yeah.
Okay. We had I don't know if it was the same person, but we had the same situation where our Mother Gothel was a Broadway performer and she did the cabaret, and this was on the Magic as well. And she was phenomenal.
Yeah. But really, really good. So exciting to see that.
All right. Well, did we get up to anything else on our second night?
I think that is it. I think we went to bed after that.
I get that. So Antigua is your next port stop. Now, I heard you talking about character like meet and greets. Was that before the port?
Yes.
Day?
So we actually had our princess gathering the morning of St. Kitts. So we had signed up, which another nice thing about concierge, I was able to get the very first slot of the day, knowing that we were going to get off the ship. So we had the 9 a.m. slot, and we would send my dad down to get in line, while the girls got their princess outfits on and things like that. And he would just sit down there and read the paper in line, and then the girls could just show up right as it started and minimize them waiting in line, which is always a disaster. So they got to do the whole princess gathering, and they loved that, seeing all the princesses and twirling and everything. But then throughout the rest of the cruise, I just had favorited different characters that I knew they liked, and then if we could make it work, we would stop by and see them, or if we happened to be walking by. The lines were really short because there weren't that many kids. So it was easy to sometimes just walk by and hop in a line. And then we did ran into a few characters just walking the deck, which was fun.
Did you guys have anything planned in Antigua? Did you have it planned, and then did you do it?
We did have something planned. We did not do it. So we got to the end of our first day, and our kids literally just were passing out, getting carried up to bed. And I said to my husband, do you think we should just stay on the ship tomorrow? We had planned sort of like a full day boat tour, but we had done it through a third party. So we actually were able to cancel, which was nice. And so we stayed on the ship, and that was an awesome decision. The ship was super empty. I guess everyone got off the ship. And so in the morning, we took the girls to the kids club, and we went to the adult pool. My husband worked out. We organized the room, which was a constant thing we were doing, and then picked them up in time for them to go on that water slide 6,000 times. They were the only kids doing it. So they just went on it one right after another. Then they ate lunch right there at the Duck Inn or whatever is right there on the pool deck. And the food was really good on the pool deck, which I was surprised by. So I was very pleasantly surprised how many options they had. And then we watched a movie on Funnel Vision, and that was kind of the day. So it was a really nice way to spend a day in port.
Yeah, it's always nice to sometimes lounge around the pool and just watch whatever Funnel Vision is telling you you're going to watch for the day.
Yeah, and they just kept eating ice cream. It was right there next to them. And so just constant refills, which of course they love.
And that's what's great about cruising too, is it's very choose your own adventure. Mm-hmm. You can go out into these adventurous ports, or you can stay on the ship, do your own adventure there, or do nothing.
Yep. And the adult pool, it's kind of funny because the adult pool got packed in the afternoon. I mean, it was to the brim packed. And the kids pool had no one there. And so I had kind of thought that I would take them back to the kids club and I would go to the adult pool, but I mean, there was no room. but they did play live music. And the nice thing is you can actually sit in the Disney Magic concierge lounge doors and see the adult pool and listen to the music and, eat a bunch of free snacks. So that was a nice perk of the concierge lounge.
In the kids club, were they doing the separation of the 3 and 4-year-olds, where they were keeping them in like a little group and moving them throughout?
They mentioned that they were, but I never really saw it in action. So I'm not sure how much. They said something like they were going to have their own counselor, but there was one time when I came to pick up them and they couldn't. Now, obviously she was in there, so it was like she was lost, but they couldn't find her between the 2 rooms. So I don't think she was with a counselor. She was just sort of running around on her. So I don't know. But the girls seemed to have a great time, and they're really into arts and crafts, and they had 6,000 crafts they had done every time they went that they brought back to our room. So someone was telling them how to do things and get organized and, do activities.
And would they message you, or would you just go and pick them up?
I just went and picked them up. So I guess when we were in Norwegian and using the kids club, we just kind of got in the habit of checking in every hour.
Yeah.
It's like, how's it going? And, we would just sort of wave and keep going. But we did that on Disney and they were like, we would message you if there was an issue. And we were like, oh, okay. I guess we don't have to keep checking in. So, yeah.
All right. Well, moving towards dinner, we should be at your first night in Lumiere's.
So we actually skipped Lumiere's because we wanted to go to the Encanto experience, which was in the middle of our dinner.
And that was the only time they were doing it?
So actually, when I got on the ship, the only time they were doing it was during the royalty. And so I asked the concierge team, I was like, it's hard, you can't like search the navigator. So I just said, is there another time? Because I really wanted to do it. My girls love Encanto, but obviously we've already booked this other thing. And I don't know if they set it up for me or what, but they were very like, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And like 2 hours later, they were like, they're going to do one at 6:30 on the third night. And I was like, and like, we'll add it to the navigator. And they did. But what was great is we were able to do room service to my parents' room. They had the 1 bedroom from Lumiere. So we placed the order and they brought it to our room to eat before we went to the Encanto experience.
Well, that works.
Yeah, worked out great. And I don't think Lumiere's has like a show or anything.
So tell me about this Encanto experience, because I actually am completely unfamiliar with it. And I don't think we've talked about it on the show at all.
We haven't talked about it on the show.
Yeah, I guess it's new post dry dock. So, I mean, it was in the D Lounge. It's like for kids, which is great. And so you go to the D Lounge and they had like a little tiny craft that the kids could do, like making a little Mary Post-it butterfly. I know we didn't try them, but they told us they had like Colombian beers and cocktails that you could go get at the bar. And then they just brought in some of the ship entertainers. It was the same people from the Sail Away Party and the same people who did Pirate Night, but they did some trivia, which I think was a little bit lost on the age of the children there. But what they did do was they did 4 of the songs from the show and they really got the kids involved. So they had all the kids come up and they gave them drums and they played the drums during one of the songs. They sang, they did a dance for We Don't Talk About Bruno. They did 4 of the big songs, which the kids really enjoyed. They did like a Congo line around the whole room and it's all decorated for Encanto. And then at the end, Bruno and Mirabelle came out and they had like a photo op, which was a really long line we didn't stay for, but it was so cool to see them. And the same story, the kids were getting real tired. So we kind of left once the music stopped.
That still sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I'm like surprised they haven't done more with Encanto, I guess, because it's a really cool, movie and lots of good music, but maybe they will in the future. But at least they have a little thing to do for Encanto.
Yeah, it always feels like they're kind of slow to roll out new movies, even when they're popular. Well, that is going to take us into our 4th day. What did we have planned in Dominica?
So we did it was called Trafalgar Falls and Champagne Snorkel. The champagne is not champagne. It is the bubbles in the ocean, much to the disappointment, I think, of many people when we showed up. But
was that privately booked or through Disney?
Through Disney. And it was just one of the only ones that allowed little kids, 4-year-olds. And it was just like a bus, took you up to a little waterfall for a hike and then to a place to snorkel. My kids can't snorkel and the beach was really rough. I thought it would just be like, oh, they'll play on the beach, but it was like rocky and rough. So a little bit of like not the best excursion, but what I thought was cool is Dominica is not an island I probably will ever get to go to again. And so just driving around the island and seeing it was, I think, worth it to get off and see it. It's like a very, very small island, very tiny population. And the tour guides we had did a really nice job of telling us about the island and stuff like that. So I did like that. And the waterfall was pretty. I did hear that a lot of the excursions were not that great on that island, and a lot of really rough roads and people getting car sick. So, but yeah, it was enjoyable to see a different part of the world.
Did your parents go on that with you as well?
Yeah, they did. So, they are, in their late 60s. So finding things that accommodate 4-year-olds and people in their late 60s and things. This is the only excursion besides the resort pass that we did all together. They actually did in both Antigua and then in Barbados, they did the sort of like amazing Barbados, amazing Antigua sort of cultural tours without us, like the adult versions of those. And they enjoyed both of them as well.
Cool. Well, as we head back towards the ship, what did we get up to?
So we are now I think so that was Pirates Night, I believe. I'm losing track of the days. So I think that was Pirates Night. So again, same story of getting the girls showers for the kids club. Well, we got all the pirate outfits ready. We did, so it's not exactly fish extenders, but we did like the pixie dusting thing. And so we had a fish extender hanging outside, and we got so many gifts from pixie dusting. And on Pirate Night, we got a bunch of them, pirate type stuff. So it was always a big thing when we got back to the room for the girls to gather all of the little gifties they had gotten and lay them out on the table. And for Pirates Night, of course, we got the jewels and the light up glow sticks and all of that. And we had brought them pirate outfits from home. So, and we brought, this is a tip for the parents, bring the light up bubble wands and light up swords because they're real cheap on Amazon and real expensive once you get on the ship. So yeah, that was basically it. We were at Animator's Pirate Palette for dinner, but it was Pirate Night.
That is probably the best restaurant to be in for a pirate night because you get all that cool concept and art theming in there.
Yeah, I thought about that they probably weren't able to do that in some of the other. So that was cool. And yeah, they really liked the pirate party out on the deck with the bubbles. I think the bubbles were their favorite part, more so than fireworks. And then Mickey, of course, coming in and all of that. So
what time was that pirate party?
It was at 7:30. And I guess they only did one. It was either before or after your dinner, depending on if you had late or early. We obviously had early dining. So.
And then was the fireworks at like 10:30 or whatever?
Nope, it was at 7:50. So right after, yeah. So now, I know. Thank goodness. We weren't obviously staying up till 10 p.m.
All right. Well, I'm guessing that we are probably tired and heading to bed after the pirate party then?
Yes, you know our schedule well. We headed to bed after that. So.
All right. Well, our next day takes us to St. Lucia. What did we do there?
We did Book Through Disney. We did Best of the West, which was a catamaran tour. And spoiler, it was awesome, but it got off to a very questionable start in that I guess hundreds of people signed up for these catamarans. We were supposed to go to like the main, showroom to check in. And I mean, it took us like 45 minutes to an hour to even check into this excursion. And so we had been waiting since like 8:30, which was our check-in time. And it wasn't until 9:30 that I was getting the little sticker to get us, and so I was starting to kind of panic that this is going to be a full day of us squeezed shoulder to shoulder. But once we got off the ship and they did divide us into smaller groups and get us on our catamarans. And then we had a pretty nice day. The catamaran was big enough for everyone. And we went to a couple of beaches and we saw, I think it's the Pitones, the two little things. Yeah. And it was a really fun day. So highly recommend.
I love a good catamaran.
Yeah.
Like I know too, we're on a Disney ship, but I need the boat outside of the ship. I need another boat experience on my Disney cruise. It just makes it so much better for me.
Yes. And I learned the difference between a boat and a ship, which is good life knowledge. So, apparently it is that a boat can be put onto a ship. So the more you know.
Yeah, I'm always very intrigued by the catamaran getaways, but we have never done one. I always look at the Nassau. I'm like, that would be something to do there.
Lake, we should be doing that.
I'd be about that.
One thing that I was a little disappointed by was I had really wanted to do this lobster catamaran thing in Antigua. And so it was on the Disney website when I was like researching my excursions. But when I emailed into the concierge team to try to book it, they told me it wasn't being offered on this cruise. And I was like, okay, disappointing. But then when we were on the catamaran at St. Lucia, a couple we were talking to told us they had done that excursion the day before.
Oh,
so
through Disney?
So I guess they ended up opening it up later, but I didn't know. And so, you know, a little disappointing that like they didn't reach out to me and be like, hey, that excursion you tried to do, but
they don't keep a list.
Yeah.
That stinks.
Bummer, but at the same time, we had a great day on the ship. So it all worked out.
Yeah, so that is unfortunately true of the Disney Cruise Line website, is when you look at the port excursions there, they're going to list everything they've basically ever offered. But that does not always mean that things will be on there. And sometimes they need to add more excursions, and all of a sudden either something that you wanted is there, or something completely new that's similar to something that was on there all of a sudden appears.
Yeah. So keep checking, I guess, is the lesson learned there.
And once we got back to the ship, what did we get up to?
I mean, I'm sure we did some character visits. That was kind of every day. But, on that day, we had the full day of St. Lucia. So my parents didn't go on that excursion. So it was really nice. They were waiting for us when we got on the ship to take the girls. So they took them to their room for showers, and they had Cabana's food waiting for them so they could do that and watch a movie while my husband and I also showered and got a snack and had some downtime. And then I think we were all back at Rapunzel's that night. I'm trying to keep track. I'm getting them all straight, but I think it was just dinner, and I think we actually had a show that night. So another one of the shows. I think we actually had Tangled that night, which was also really good. I, for some reason, because Cinderella was a different story than Cinderella, I thought Tangled would be like a different story, but it's not. It's the classic Tangled story, which was still, you know, my kids still loved it. They will watch the same movie over and over.
All right. Well, I believe that takes us into our last port day, which is going to be Barbados.
And we did another day on the ship. I kind of had heard that on the sea day, which is our next day, the pools would be packed solid. So we did want to do one more day. My parents got off and did their city tour of Barbados, and we stayed on and did the water slides again and the kids' pool. Basically the same agenda as the last time.
Was there anything else on your not a sea day that we did that was notable?
I went to the spa. My mom and I, we went and got pedicures, which is really nice. And I will say the other nice thing about concierge is like, we were able to be flexible. I hadn't thought about going to the spa, but she wanted to, and I was able to go and just ask the guy at the concierge. He was able to squeeze us in on the day we wanted. And I guess I didn't go into like the spa proper because it was just pedicures, but they have a really nice pedicure setup with big windows overlooking the ocean. So it was really, really fun. And we also that night we actually went and explored the adult entertainment area where
the adult district.
Yes. So they have the Keys Bar and the pub. I'm forgetting the name of the pub, and Soul Cat. And we really enjoyed all of those, and we did some live music in Soul Cat and in Keys, and really kind of wished we had allocated more time to doing that kind of thing. So I think if we go on another one, I think I would, now that I've seen the shows, so I don't feel like I have to do them again, I would probably look more into like going to see some of the musical acts and some of the smaller areas, because it was really fun.
And did you do that with your husband or your mom?
All my parents and my husband. So the girls went to the kids club. It was actually, we were supposed to thought we were going to see the cabaret show, but since it was canceled, we had already dropped it off the kids club. So we said, well, what else is all out there? And there was someone in Keys playing, someone in Soul Cat playing. And so we just kind of walked around and enjoyed that.
Yeah, the adult music is some of our favorite things to do. Just sit there, get a drink, chat with the bartenders, and listen to good music.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like that too.
And we can go, because in the concierge lounge, they have like open bar from 5 to 10. So you could kind of like who loses the short straw and runs up and gets the drinks for everyone and brings them back down. But it's nice that you can bring them anywhere on the ship.
All right. Well, I believe that brings us into our final day, our real day at sea. And I believe we were pretty jam-packed on this day.
Yes, and it got even more jam-packed because they invited us to like a character meet and greet at the concierge lounge, and it of course conflicted with our Palo brunch. But again, we were able to talk to the concierge lounge and they moved our Palo brunch no problem so that we could go, and they arranged it that we would be able to be like the first ones to do the care so we could go straight to the brunch. So they were always super accommodating, and it was Stitch. So we started out the day with a nice Stitch meet and greet, and then dropped the girls at the kids club and headed to Palo brunch. Yeah. So that I had obviously heard so much about it. So it was exciting to finally see it.
How was our meal? What did we get?
So I got basically everything on the menu.
Nice.
We got the grape and gorgonzola pizza. We got a meat and cheese board, champagne, which my parents don't drink champagne, and they were nice enough to let me and my husband double up, drink their glasses. I got a waffle, which I was excited to see even for the adults. It's a Mickey waffle, and then a bunch of desserts. So basically just kept ordering food.
We love Palo brunch.
I think it would have been nice to do it earlier in the cruise. I think we had kind of eaten a lot up at that point. So you're kind of like, I've just been eating for 6 days straight. Maybe it would have been nice on like day 2, but it was still a good experience. All
right. And then I believe this was the day we had Bippity Boppity, right?
Yes, that is right. So they went to Bippity Boppity Boutique, and again, this is the kind of thing that's hard to explain to 4-year-olds what it is they're about to do. I brought them dresses from home. I brought them like so many princess dresses. So I did my own version in the room of like, look at all the dresses. Which ones would you like to pick of the ones we already own? So they picked out their dresses in the room, and then we went up. And I like that they're very committed to the bit up in there. You know, they're the fairy godmothers. They speak to them that way. They really treat them like princesses and ooh and ah over them, and take it, very seriously, like putting the makeup on. And so the girls really ate it all up. And very big grins when they finally turned them around to see their makeovers. So, and of course I had wanted, the cute classic, like the bun with the little tiara, and my girls both chose the multicolored hair with the flowers and the red ponytail.
Of course they did.
Yes, didn't match anything they were wearing, but I was like, it's their moment. So, and then we went straight from there to the Royal Court Tea, which I would say is like probably the one thing that I would not have, if I would have done differently. It's, kind of pricey. And at that point, we had seen all the princesses at the Princess Gathering and then at many of the meet and greets throughout. And in fact, I don't know if it's because Rapunzel is so prominent on that ship, but she was out and about basically all the time. She played Duck, Duck, Goose with the kids. She was like walking around with them all the time in the kids club. So I think this was kind of repetitive, honestly, at this point, but good to still do and get the experience, I guess.
Yeah, they changed the gifts too, right? Was that during your...
Yes. So I guess they used to have a girl's gift and a boy's gift. Now everyone gets sort of the same gift. And I will say the gifts were a big hit. They got they got like a stuffed Gus Mouse from Cinderella. They got like a velvet cape and a crown, and then they got an autograph book. And I think they were very pleased with their gifts. So I did have to make room in the suitcase. So keep that in mind. Especially the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique also gives you a backpack and a t-shirt. So we had collected a lot of things that day. But yeah, I do think the gifts might be slightly better than what they previously had.
Oh, that's good. And yeah. Did I read, was there food? Like, I know there's little tiny mini sandwiches, but did they include that for the adults that are there? Or is it?
There's definitely more than enough food, and the adults get real tea. The kids get apple juice, but they don't really refill the tea or the apple juice very frequently. And also, we were kind of all full from brunch and everything. So, yeah, I would say, like, if you're looking for something to do the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, but do it before the Royal Gathering, and then just go do the Royal Gathering, and it's kind of the same experience.
Who all went of the adults to
me and my mom, and then the girls. And I my other thought on this is I wish we had brought my dad and my husband, only because the adults aren't that expensive, and then we would have had our own table. And not that sharing a table is a big deal, but the way they do it is they seat one family across from the other. And so my girls were seated like this, and then me and my mom. And so it's very hard to help them with like pouring their tea and getting their food and organizing stuff when you're sitting all the way down. And so it was a little bit of a lot of me getting up to try to help them, sitting back down, getting up. And you can't really get like nice pictures from that angle of like them with the princesses. So I was kind of envisioning us like all sitting together at a table instead of along a row. But I get why they do that because they want the little kids to be closest to the middle where the princesses are, but it's just logistically a bit challenging.
Well, it's good to know, though. I mean, it's good feedback.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that very often, so.
And then I think the other thing I'll just share, another change that I think is new is I think they used to do the 1-bedroom concierge room used to have like an extensive room service breakfast menu, and they have cut that down. So I know that was something I was excited about, but it is now a much more limited menu of only like 4 hot items. So that was a change from what I was expecting based on the research I did. So I'll just share that if anyone else is thinking about doing that.
Yeah. What else did your parents, I guess, that is a change, because basically you could order off the Royal Court menu. So whatever was on Royal Court or whatever it's called on any of the different ships, that restaurant you could get delivered to your 1-bedroom. So what did your parents otherwise think of their 1-bedroom?
Oh, I think they thought it was really beautiful. I think they redid all of those.
They did.
Yeah, they loved it. And it was very big, very spacious. The girls slept in there every other night. We were sort of trading off, and the room attendants got real good at knowing where the girls were going to be and making sure they made up the right rooms. I think I had asked for character bed sheets. I had heard that was something that could happen, but I don't think they had them on this ship. The room was awesome. And they do stock it with like a few basic drinks. I think like waters, Diet Cokes, and regular Cokes. So that was nice as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Christy, can you still request in concierge to have it stocked with things?
Yeah, but like it has to be something they can reasonably get. So some people are like requesting Red Bull or whatever, but isn't that Pepsi? Whatever it is, it's like it's got to be a brand
within their supply.
Yeah, that's within their supply. And then they're cutting that down, way down. So like
I put in some requests. They did not do any of them. So I sent both an email and then I called, and I did make sure to request only things they had. I had a picture of what was available in the concierge room from Facebook, but either that got lost in translation or they just can't do things anymore. So none of the concierge requests made it onto the boat, unfortunately. But that was the grand scheme of things.
Did you feel like the amenities of the lounge at least made up for that? Like they had enough to offer there if you needed something?
Oh, yeah. Like, you can go up there and grab bottled water or like, the metal bottles. And then we would, go before an excursion, load up a backpack, and then they're selling that like same water for like $20 while you're getting off the ship. So that was great. The popcorn and waters before you go into the show was cool, and getting to have the seat that you can go in and grab your seat beforehand. The snacks in there were great. I mean, I think overall I found the concierge to be well worth it, the whole program, so to speak.
Did we get up to anything else on our last day before we kind of bring this sailing to a close?
No, I think that was basically it. That was a pretty busy day and we were tired. And then, of course, you have to pack up all of your bags that night, which, was an undertaking. So we were all pretty full, and the girls just ate on the pool deck. So we were didn't even go to dinner that night, which I was a little disappointed by because I knew that was the night they were going to do like the draw your own character, but I couldn't rally the troops. So we all kind of just packed up. I think I want to say there was a show that night. I think they had like Disney Dreams. And so that was our last show. And that was kind of a fun way to end the cruise. I feel like I had heard not negative, but like, so-so reviews, but I thought that show was really nice. And especially for my girls who recognized a lot of the characters and the music and don't need something super plot driven, they really liked it. So that was kind of the last part of the cruise.
One quick question. What did your husband and father do when you guys were doing royal tea or royal court tea and Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique?
They packed. So
okay.
I think originally they had thought they would go do something, but the day just got so busy with everything else, it ended up being like the main sort of time when they could go and get organized and pack things up. So I think they were working on that in their individual rooms, helping us out.
Well, that works.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, the next day is disembarkation. Did we fly out that same day? And how was the disembarkation process for you?
No, my parents did, but we stayed one more day. There was only the direct flights to DC are only in the morning, and I figured better to plus I wasn't like sure how we would entertain the girls without a hotel room, like at an airport. like multiple hours. So we went, you can go to the concierge lounge and then they walk you off. So we didn't do like express walk off because we had all of our bags, but after express walk off is over, they will take the concierge guests off first. And my parents had to like really fast to try to get their flight. And I, again, was like a little worried that it would be stressful, but it was super easy. They had a bunch of porters waiting as soon as you got off, and it was like, tip them $20. They helped you get your bags and brought you right to a cab. Lots of cabs waiting. And then we just took a cab straight to our hotel, which was a Residence Inn out by the beach. Went out there and just had a day of relax. They had a pool and like a water park for the kids. So did that and sort of had one more day of vacation before we left early the next morning to fly home.
Awesome. Well, I have just a couple more questions before we close out the episode. One, you had mentioned you actually had booked some things both through Disney and on your own. Where did you find the resources to book those things on your own? I know some people don't necessarily have the confidence to book things outside of Disney just because they like the guarantee of knowing you'll get back to the ship. So what did you use to find those excursions?
I really used the cruise Facebook page. I know it's not like an official Facebook page, but it's like someone on the cruise made it. So I just found my cruises sailing. And then I think there was like a thread that was like, what is everyone doing in every port? And I think because this is a unique itinerary, there's like not so much options in some of them. So I just read what other people were doing and kind of copied them basically. So that was basically all I did. And then of course, just cross-reference things on TripAdvisor and stuff like that. Disney doesn't have reviews for their excursions on the website, but I think it's Royal Caribbean has a lot of the same excursions. So if you just go to their page and cross-reference the excursions, you can find the reviews on their page, and that'll give you a pretty good idea if it's a good excursion or not.
That's kind of an awesome hack. Usually the exact same vendors, exact same cruises. I know for Alaska, it was pretty much the same situation.
They have different names, but they'll have the same photos. You just have to check the photos match, and then you can read the review.
Smart.
All right. Another question for you. Did you have any notable cast interactions that you'd like to highlight from the cruise?
Every one of the concierge lounges was amazing. My serving team was really good. I assumed that was just because everyone on Disney was amazing. But then after the cruise, I just saw on the group chat that some people, I guess, didn't love their serving team as much, but mine was great. I thought that the character interactions when they were just walking around were so memorable and so special. Like I told you, Rapunzel was playing Duck, Duck, Goose with kids. And I think that was just like such a highlight for my girls. It's not like waiting in line and taking a photo. It's an actual like playing a game. Pluto was playing ping pong with a bunch of kids in the back of the boat, and my girls were watching that and loving it. So obviously the cast members doing those jobs were just doing a really outstanding job of engaging the kids.
Awesome. Well, my last question for you is, what's next for you? Did we book a placeholder? Do we have a plan for another cruise?
Well, I have to go on this Alaska cruise now. So we're going on Norwegian though, because sort of what I was describing, I just want to be able to focus on Alaska. So that's in August. And then I think
this year.
Yeah, I know. It's a big cruise year, I guess. But we sort of talked about it and we thought, like maybe every 2 years is the right cadence so that it's still novel for the kids. It doesn't get old hat to keep doing it. But it was amazing how many people we ran into. It was like their 15th cruise, their 20th cruise. So who knows? Maybe it gets addicting.
Yeah, that does tend to happen. Miss 25 over here coming up.
Not yet.
In like a week.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
So does that get you into a new category of their loyalty program? Oh, that's exciting. And now I'm silver. So I'm like part of the loyalty program.
That's
One
fine.
more question. Did you get the photo package for your family?
I did. My mom wanted it, and it was a little confusing how to best do it, considering we had the 2 staterooms. There was a lot of conflicting information about, like, some of them were saying if you have 2 staterooms and you're all the same family, you could get like a discount on the second package, but apparently that's only immediate family, and I guess my parents don't count as my immediate family, which is an interesting definition. But at the end of the day, we both signed up for the photo package and figured because you could cancel up to the last night. And on the last night, we had all the same photos, no matter who was in them in our photo package.
Oh.
So we just canceled the other one. And I still got all the pictures, including the ones with just my parents.
Typically, so you can cancel it. So you can book it and cancel it like Liz did with her family. But if all the photos aren't there, the person with the most family members should book it. Like, and Liz has the kids. So the reality is that most of the pictures that people would want to leave with are the ones with the children, like the grandparents and the children, or like you and your mom. But because as long as somebody from your cabin is in the other photo, you get them all. You would be able to assign them all so that you could get the pictures and then, give them to mom.
What I found out is there are no discounts for 2 packages. Yeah. So, yeah. But I think what you're saying is right. What we ultimately landed on.
Which, I mean, awesome that they just assigned them all to your cabin and there you go.
Yeah. Worked out perfectly. Perfect. And I will say it was a little hard to download them. I don't know if it was my computer, but there was basically no way to just hit download all without it crashing. So I ended up having to go through and do it 5 at a time. It took forever.
Yeah. I almost wonder if, because you could do it on your phone, it might be easier to download them before you get off the ship onto your phone and then transfer them over that way.
Well, Liz, thank you so much again for coming on and sharing you and your family's experience on the Magic. And we hope you guys have just an absolutely fantastic time in Alaska. We just did Alaska or Norwegian, and it was still phenomenal. But thank you again so much for coming on. And that is going to do it for this episode of the DCL Podcast. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Liz for coming on and sharing her family's experience aboard the Disney Magic. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by joining our community by visiting patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.